Hi, this is Shambhavi. Welcome to my weekly podcast about spirituality, love, death, devotion, and waking up while living in a messy world. The Satsang with Shambhavi podcast is recorded live each week with students of our nonprofit community, Jayakula. For more information and to find out about attending a satsang, visit jayakula.org. Thanks for listening. Much love to you, wherever and however you are. I want to continue on with the discussion that we've been having in different ways with different sets of people being in attendance. And that is about the difference between subservience and surrender. What people are sometimes afraid of in Eastern type spiritual traditions or even Christianity is that they'll have to be subservient, that they'll have to give up their freedom or give up their free will or come under the sway of someone who is demanding some sort of obedience or obeisance. And that can happen. But subservience is very, very different from the type of surrender that we're talking about when we are talking about waking up. So subservience, or even obsequiousness, it's a bargain. It's a bargaining situation. The person who's being subservient or obsequious, there's a very fine line between those two from my perspective. You're trying to strike a bargain with the person that you're being subservient to. You're saying, I will give away my freedom. I will give away my independence. I will give you what I think you want, some sort of adoration or admiration or something like that. And in exchange, I want you to save me, love me, like me, admire me, approve of me, put me in the number one position, show everybody that you think I'm great, or whatever it is. We all have our different flavor of bargain. I also said the other day that when we were talking about prostrations, and I hope everybody who hasn't had a chance to can go on the MGO channel or on SoundCloud and listen to the talk that I gave on Wednesday night about Ananda Mayama's instructions for pranaming, for prostration. I also said on Wednesday night that if you lower your eyes to the teacher with a subservient attitude, you will try to make someone else lower their eyes to you at another time. Performing a kind of submission to someone you think is higher up on the pecking order than you only demonstrates that you have a pecking order. And you are going to try to make someone else you perceive as being further down on that pecking order lower their eyes to you when whomever you think is so great isn't around. So this shows up in a lot of different ways. And I'm not just talking about spiritual communities. I've seen this everywhere that I've ever been. I mean, I saw it in academia. I've seen it on job, as an employee in different organizations. I've seen it in our community. It's about competition and Titan realm and feeling like you're somewhere in the middle, wanting to gain approval from the person or persons you think are higher up and wanting to gain the devotion of the people below you, or at least scare them into something. So this shows up like you are really polite and subservient to one person, and then you're mean and withholding and critical of someone you perceive as weaker than you. This happens in our community. You know who you are. So, not to point the finger at you. I didn't really mean to do that. But if the finger fits, you're not the only one. It shows up as being obsequious and lowering your eyes and being gracious and kowtowing to the one you think is higher up, and then tearing them down when they're not around, right? Tearing them, being critical, disparaging, etc. when they're not around. This is classic Titan realm, right? Namkhai Norba Rinpoche, my Dzogchen teacher, described Titan realm as the middle child of the realm visions. So Titan is sandwiched in between gods and humans. They're kowtowing to the gods, but secretly they want to tear the gods down so they can be gods. And then they're lording it over the humans that they think are weaker. There is no place in this practice for cultivating that kind of hierarchy or those kind of metrics or measuring between yourself and other people. Not even with the teacher. The absolute essence of self-realization is the realization that all manifestations of life have total equality. And that equality means equal value. That the essence nature of everything that we experience and all the people we experience, all the beings, is the same and of equal value. There is no one to be subservient to. There is no bargain to be struck. There is no one to lord it over. This is total realm vision, karmic realm vision in operation. The whole point of this practice is to recognize that your essence nature is the same as mine, the same as Ma's, the same as Lord Shiva's or any other Lord you want to name, the same as the person sitting next to you. The whole practice can be summed up by that. Even though you may have a samskara of creating a hierarchy and operating under a bunch of metrics of who's stronger than you and weaker than you, don't fool yourself. Not only is that not the practice, but I am not interested in your subservience. I don't want it. It doesn't fulfill me in any way, and I'm not asking for it. The nature of this reality is swatantriya, independence, freedom of expression, total equality in all situations. I have spent my entire life in this tradition, since I was in my mid-20s. This is what thrills me, not subservience. Nor the flip side. There's some people that probably think I don't know that they're treating other people badly. There's some of you who know that I know, but there's some of you who might think you're getting away with this. You're not. Even if I don't directly see you treating other people badly, when you are lowering your eyes to me or being sort of pseudo-devoted, that is huge. You might as well just be waving a red flag over your head, because I know you're going to try to make somebody else feel bad down the road. That's just how it works. Nature. That's part of our fixation. Surrender. Oh, and P.S., you can't bargain with wisdom. There was a great quote. I was watching Stargate the other day. There was a really wonderful tantric quote by one of the characters, or line, Teal'c. Teal'c is this character who used to be a servant, a slave, enslaved by this other race of people called the Gauds or something. And he had actually this implant put in him, like a form of possession that enslaved him. And he finally broke out of slavery. And then later in this show that I was watching, someone was trying to brainwash him and break him and make him do something he didn't want to do. And he didn't get broken and he didn't get brainwashed. And so one of his fellows said, "So Teal'c, how did you resist being brainwashed by this very, very powerful other being?" And he said, "Knowing yourself is the ultimate protection against being brainwashed or made into a slave. When you really know yourself, you cannot be influenced. you can't be bargained with. You can't be swayed by false admiration or praise or the reverse. If you really know who you are, that can't happen. And of course, in spiritual traditions, any good teacher actually really knows who they are. And so you cannot bargain with them. That's what makes a teacher work. That's like the basic ingredient. The bargain is just not on the table. That's on the table of ordinary mind. So surrender is on the table, though. And surrender means that it means many, many different things. But it means, first of all, that you are working with what is. You are working with your real circumstance. You are not fighting against it by escaping into past, future fantasy, by railing at reality and saying how it shouldn't be this way, by feeling like you're specially victimized, by trying to aggress on reality and, I'm going to make it different. Like that. You're actually just seeing what is, and you are being practical, and you're working with it without feeling like there's anything wrong with how things are. That's a huge surrender, right? Surrendering your ideas about how things should be. Because really, what is an idea about how things should be? It's a fantasy. It's not how things are. How things should be is just an idea or some sort of phantasm. It isn't how things actually are. The second huge way of surrendering is that having contacted wisdom in some way, that unbargainable with wisdom, whether it's in one form or another, your own inner knowing, the teacher, the tradition, having found an avenue, a pathway to communicate with wisdom somehow, that you follow it. Wisdom is wisdom. It's not, again, there's no bargain about it. Wisdom, I mean wisdom about the nature of reality, wisdom about how things actually are. There's no alternative. Right? When you have actually discovered that directly, I don't mean like a theory or a philosophy or anything like that, but when you have felt it, when you have contacted it, when you have recognized it, and then you stop bargaining with it, you simply follow it. That is huge surrender. And then letting yourself be guided by nature, letting yourself be guided by nature, and doing what's asked of you by that process of waking up. The process of waking up is a conversation between you and wisdom, or you and nature, same thing. When you are spoken to and asked to do something, then you do it. That's a huge surrender. Because you always get asked to do things that small self doesn't want to do. However, in this process of surrender, you are never being subservient, ever. Because you are recognizing on some level, whether it's very obvious to you or only intermittently slightly obvious to you, in this kind of tradition, you're recognizing that you are following the wisdom, and the wisdom, the self, is you. You're following your own enlightened self in whatever form it shows up for you. So where's the subservience? There's no room for it. There's devotion that arises naturally. There's a sense of confidence in the process and willingness to follow the process. You could almost call the guru a guru process, not even a person. You're following a process of unfolding to recognize your real nature and have more freedom of expression, freedom to participate with reality and nature in a spontaneous, open, way that is full of that majesty of the self, not subservience. So as Nanamaima said about prostration, when you prostrate, you are looking at the whole person that you're prostrating to. And you are always starting, before you get down on that floor, looking into the eyes of that person so that you can recognize yourself, so that you can prostrate with the right attitude, which is that you're prostrating to the wisdom of your own self. There is no obedience here either. There's natural devotion. It's driven by your desire. Nobody wants your obedience, least of all me. Boy, it's just a pain in the neck when people are running around being obedient. It's like having a very dull conversation at a cocktail party. It has that dry, juiceless quality. Whereas devotion, when someone is full of devotion, then it's a magnificent situation. That natural devotion. What are you devoted to? The whole thing. You think I'm just devoted to Ma? It's the whole thing happening. It's just so wow. It's like impossible to describe, of course, but when you start to wake up, you just can't believe how extraordinary this is. And you feel devotion toward the whole thing. And it's very natural, and there's nothing performed about it. So there's only one reason, like on a smaller level, on a relative level, why teachers teach if they do know themselves. And that's because they want you to experience the same thing they have, right? It's so wonderful that they want you to experience it too. And teachers who know that obsequious and subservience and performative doing your duty and slavishness and admiring and reassuring comments made to the teacher are not leading you in the right direction. When you are really open and following and in the river of devotion, every gesture that you make and everything that you do is going to be proclaiming that. There are people who will proclaim and proclaim and proclaim how grateful they are and how devoted they are. But if I ask them to do one thing, they'll say no. It's like, do I need to hear how devoted you are? No. Devotion and surrender are actions. They may have words sometimes. They may come with words sometimes, but they're not only words. If any teacher needs you to bow or needs you to proclaim or needs you to fawn or admire, you really should leave, right? And some of you who occasionally do that or regularly do that, I wonder if you even know who I am, really. Because while you're doing that, I'm just twiddling my thumbs, basically, figuratively speaking.